Well. Here we are on Small Ball. Welcome to the show. I'm going to notify the world. We're going to be bang today. Nice and quick. We got to get the show in half an hour, maybe even hopefully sooner. We have baseball on. I'm going to try to get through everything I have today quickly, but there is a lot. I highly recommend, as I hear notify the world that we're live, I highly recommend that you stay for the entirety of the show because we have some stuff that I want to talk about, and it's gonna be good. I'm telling you, it's going to be good. So ALDS, NLDS, both underway. Okay. Now I picked the Astros in that ALCS. I should say ALCS and NLCS underway. I picked the Astros in that series. Now they're down 2-0. Okay. And I'm gonna still ride with that pick. I'm good with that pick. For the time being, I think we're okay. I think that we'll manage. We will manage. But I'm gonna start the show today with this. So, in the midst of all these playoff situations and whatnot, we have playoff games being played. But there's other news to talk about. So, the Chicago White Sox have have mutually parted ways with Rick Renteria, their manager. Okay, so 3 things that we have to address. Number 1, what does this say about Rick Renteria, about the franchise? Number 2, was it the right move to fire him? And number 3, where do they go from here? Okay, well, they mutually part ways. Okay, they did not fire him. They both agreed, you know what, best if we move on. So the White Sox expectations have to be at an absolute max right now, right? Because to part ways with your manager after making the playoffs is not, typical. So they're looking to win now and win a lot. They part ways with Renteria. What does that say? Well, my initial reaction is Rick Renteria wanted to get up and the heck out of there, and I do not blame him. And here's why. Was it the right firing? Absolutely not. So I look at this White Sox team. Okay, a lot of talent, but really, really not put together in a way that I think is built to win in the postseason. They have, way too many strikeouts. They do not defend well at all. And they're very, very young. And it's interesting. Most young teams, and we talked about this the other day, there's a balance between energy and maturity. They don't have either, because most young teams have energy and lack maturity. Most experienced teams lack energy and have maturity. For a young team, they're about as dead as I have seen in a long time. So Rick Renteria is on his way out. And this is a big question mark here for the White Sox organization, because they are basically saying, right, everyone wants to blame the manager, right? Every organization, when they don't have a reason why they're not meeting their expectations, they slip screen to the manager. It's got to be the manager. Let's get someone new in the building and see, if it can play out differently for us. But in this particular situation, using that as an excuse, I think, is a large mistake for an organization and a front office that has not done a good job. And that is a vast understatement, in my opinion, over the last 15 years. They last won the World Series in 2005. In 2005, they were fourth in ERA. They were second in stolen base attempts, and they were third in fielding percentage. So tied for third actually in ERA. So, or fifth in fielding percentage. So what does that tell us? They've been getting progressively more analytical over the course of the last 17 years. And frankly, they've been becoming less good at baseball because this is a roster with a lot of young talent that is not built to beat good teams. Now, this is a front office, right? This is coming from the GM. All of these quotes coming from their GM. A front office that probably is the worst drafting team of the last 10 years. I mean, look at their starting lineup. No draft picks. They cannot draft good players. Yasmani Grandal, free agency. Luis Robert, international. Moncada, international. Mazara, free agency. Giolito, a trade with the Nationals, right? So, Jose Abreu, international. They cannot draft good players. Not to mention, they're putting together all of these pieces, and they all look exactly the same. It's sort of like a Dodger situation. Every one of their offensive players, their hitters, big swing and miss, cannot hit, top-level arms, and cannot defend. So they're making this excuse by parting ways with Rick Renteria, who, like I said, if I'm him, I want to get up and out of there. I think he is a good manager, very good manager. I think now that, the Tigers are looking for a manager, Ron Gardenhire retires, I think he's a great fit there. But we'll talk about that at another time. So he wants to get out of there. He cannot coach this team because they do not make contact. They do not play defense. And think about this. I talk about managers a lot, in terms of getting the most out of your players, creating a culture. But that's not something that you can teach, right? You can't tell Eloy Jimenez to cut down on his strikeouts. It's not going to happen, right? He is going to be a high strikeout guy. Same thing with Robert. Same thing with Mazara. Same thing with Grandal. You can't tell Yoan Moncada to play better defense. You can't tell Yasmani Grandal to have a stronger arm. Like, these are not things that you can coach. So he cannot coach this team. He doesn't want to. The White Sox are looking for a guy to change things up because they don't have a better excuse for their mistakes in the front office. They have not put together a competitive team. They've put together a collection of above-average talent at best. And they were leading in Game 3 of the wild card series, so their expectations are very, very high, and they haven't been able to. Like I said, since their last title, they've been becoming progressively more analytical, and they haven't really been competitive. So was it the right firing? Absolutely not. Rick Renteria wants to make things happen. He wants to put guys in motion. He wants to get creative, but he can't do that with a lineup of 9 guys that look exactly the same and have no thing other on their minds than how far can I hit this baseball right now? So where do they go from here? Well, the GM made it pretty clear. There was a quote from him that said, "We want a guy who has had recent postseason success." So let's do a little text analysis here. Recent, I would say, translates to last couple of years. Postseason success translates to a championship. And it has to be a guy that is currently not under contract with a major league team. So, I wonder who that could be. Well, let's think. Who's won a title recently and is currently not under contract with a major league team? Well, I can think of 2 guys. How about AJ Hinch and Alex Cora, who obviously were suspended for this season as a result of the Astros scandal. Both won titles in the last 3 years and are without a job. So essentially, it was just a politically correct way of saying we want one of those guys from the Astros. And I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with them, hiring a guy that they think is going to win games for their franchise. I don't have a problem with that. But we do have to see if that's the right fit. Now, what is A.J. Hinch good at? What is his specialty? The Astros, under his helm, were incredible defensively. Fewest strikeouts in 3 of 4 years. Putting guys on base. Moving guys around. Veteran leadership. That doesn't sound like what I just laid out with the White Sox. A.J. Hinch could not coach the team. Because like I said, the manager can play a large role in the culture, in the development of players. But you can't take the framework of a player and ask a manager to completely reinvent it. You cannot make these guys that I just named into small ball, no pun intended, grit and grind kind of players. You can't do that. They also don't throw a lot of strikes. A.J. Hinch cannot coach this team. What about Alex Cora? Well, I think he would help with the energy because I think that's his specialty is getting a team fired up, ready to play. Those Red Sox teams had a ton of energy, but they had veterans. This team does not. Okay? It was an energy that was rooted in success, rooted in history, rooted in an organization that has a strong fan base, has a strong, good, positive culture, has a winning history in the last 20 years. The White Sox are the secondary team in their market, don't have much of a fan base, and don't have veteran leadership with any postseason pedigree, and they're not a winning organization either. So Alex Cora can't coach that team. He can't. What they need, in my opinion, because A.J. Hinch can't coach that team. Alex Cora cannot coach that team. These are guys, A.J. Hinch needs guys in motion, guys on base, right? Guys that can make things happen. This White Sox lineup in a secondary market, they're the secondary team in the Chicago market. A.J. Hinch can't coach that team. Rick Renteria wanted to get up and out of there. So what do they need? Well, I think they need a younger guy to capture that locker room, a young locker room, okay? But they also need a guy because, like I said, they've been getting progressively more analytical over the last 16 years since their last title in 2005. And that has not paid off for them. So they need a young guy who's old school, okay? Good luck finding that. Not to mention, they'll need a guy that, can bring some energy, right? Because it's a young team, like I said. Most young teams, if not all, but I'll say most, have energy. This team has none. So they need a younger guy who's old school and can bring energy. That sounds a lot to me like Jace Tingler, Padres' new manager. But he's a rookie, and you can't have a rookie because this is a team that wants to win now. Jace Tingler was an excellent hire for the Padres because this is a growing team, right? This is a team that had high expectations, but not White Sox level expectations. This is a team that wants to win now. I don't see somebody who fits that mold. A young, old school, energetic, experienced manager. That doesn't exist. Moral of the story is I don't think it was the right fire. I'm going to move on to this. It's analogy time. You guys love my analogies. Here we go. Just to wrap that up, we'll talk more about what they'll do going forward and whom I think they should hire. But I think firing Rick Renteria is a bad excuse for a poorly run franchise. And again, I keep saying firing. I should say mutually parted ways because Rick Renteria could not coach that team, did not want to, and I don't blame him. So Have you ever written a paper for school, okay, or any kind of project like that, and it was due in quite some time, right? Long-term project, long-term paper. We'll take paper for instance, okay? And along the way, right? So the final project, final due date is way down the road, okay? And along the way, there are these checkpoints. Teacher says, in 2 weeks, I'd like, an outline. And 3 weeks, I want a thesis statement. 6 weeks, I want a first draft. Checkpoints. And what are they for? They're to make sure that you are putting in the adequate, preparation and work to set yourself up, prepare yourself for a good final project. And how many of you, during these projects, first checkpoint comes up and you have nothing. All right? So you throw something together. Teacher's going to check it, going to grade it, and you need to just have something. But your focus is not on that project because it's way down the road. All right, second checkpoint comes up. You say, you know what? Next checkpoint, I'm going to try to have this ready to go. You don't. So you throw something together and, you make some good points. You use some fancy language, and it's good enough to get yourself through that checkpoint and on to the next one leading up to the final project. And how many of you have done that and have gotten to the final project and were absolutely lost and unprepared? I have. And there are good teachers and there are bad teachers. If you're talented, smart, good with, phonetics and good at writing, you can make those outlines, thesis statements, first drafts, you can make them look pretty good. You can make them look good enough where a less than great teacher will say, okay, cool, good job, I'll see you next checkpoint. If you're talented. And those teachers that are, less than ideal have a hard time sorting out talent from future success. And if you're a Major League Baseball team, the final project is the postseason. And the lead up to that, the checkpoint process, is the regular season. And similarly, if you're talented, you hit a lot of home runs, you throw hard, you got a lot of guys that can throw hard, you make some flashy plays, you can win a lot of games in the regular season, playing against the Pirates and the Tigers and teams like that. You can win a lot of games. But if you're not prepared, if you are not built in a way that is advantageous to the postseason, if you're not built to beat great teams, you're going to struggle in October. And so the Los Angeles Dodgers, for about 4 years now, have had a lot of talent, ton of talent. And every year, baseball fans who are like bad teachers get so mesmerized by their talent, their home run hitting ability, their flashy plays, pitching staff with credentials, okay? And every year, I hear, whoa, watch out for the Dodgers. No one's stopping them this year. And each of the last 3 years, I've said, no. They're going to lose in the division series. They're going to lose in the championship series. And every year, they've proved me right. So this year, I had them as my National League pennant winner. Why? Well, they added Mookie Betts. And I've said over the last 3 years, they have way too many flaws to win a title. And flaws can get swept under the rug in the regular season because, you can out-homer bad teams. You can out-velo bad teams. But in the postseason, flaws are magnified. And Mookie Betts comes in, and I said fixes all of their flaws. They don't make enough contact, he fixes that. They don't have enough righties, he fixes that. Fringy defense, he fixes that. Nobody on base, he fixes that. Questionable leadership, he fixes that. But I forgot one. There's one flaw that I forgot. I didn't forget, actually. I talked about it, but I failed to address it when I was making my picks. And Mookie Betts does not fix it. And it is the question of their pitching staff. Between Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw, Kenley Jansen, the big names of their staff, they are the least clutch pitching group I have ever seen. And that is a flaw that can be magnified. And it is also a flaw that Mookie Betts does not fix. And that is a large reason why I've been picking them to lose in the playoffs over the last few years. Now they're playing the Atlanta Braves. And if flaws are magnified, let's zoom out for a second. This is a team that does not have flaws. They can hit for contact. They can hit for power. They can defend very well. They throw a lot of strikes. A lot of strikes. The only potential problem is that they don't have postseason pedigree, and they have not looked good in the postseason over the last couple of years. Why? Well, because they're young, and we've kind of predicted last couple of years that they're not quite ready yet. But one of these years, they're going to be ready. And they're up against the Dodgers, who aren't young anymore. They have veterans, and they don't look good in the postseason either. So it's a Braves team that one of these years is going to figure it out versus a Dodgers team that has already proven to us they can't win big games. So Mookie Betts is a tremendous addition. But I'm going to go ahead, and I hate to do this once the series has already started, but I would like to change my pick. I'm picking the Braves in 7 to beat the Dodgers, maybe even 6. And obviously, it's somewhat cheating, right? The series has already started. The Braves are already winning. So, a lot of you might say it's not entirely fair to change my picks. But there's an old saying that goes, if you run a YouTube baseball talk show by yourself, you can do whatever you want. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to change my pick to the Braves. Because I got so lost and wrapped up in this edition of Mookie Betts that I forgot that over the last 4 years, I have been the only person to see the Dodgers for what they really are. A lock to choke in the postseason. Now, Mookie Betts helps them a lot, and that's why I picked them to win, but there is a major flaw in the pitching staff and other flaws that Mookie Betts contributes to fixing, but they still don't hit for that much contact, and they still have fringy defense at times, and they still could use another righty or two in their lineup, and they still don't put a lot of guys on base. And that is not a good formula to beat great postseason pitchers. Talked about that many times. Guys like that, uppercut swings, you can't hit postseason level arms with high velo who actually do put the ball where they want it. That'll work in the regular season. You can get a lot of wins. You can put together a good outline if you're talented and smart. But if you're not buttoned up, you're not going to have a good final paper, and you're not going to be able to have a lot of success in the postseason if you're a major league team. So it's a Braves franchise with, I don't think, any flaws because it looks like they're ready. They are on fire, 6-0 this postseason. And in years past, they have not looked like a championship-level team. They've looked like they've had more than enough talent. But this year, they look ready. They look buttoned up. Brian Snitker's doing an incredible job as manager, and they don't have any flaws. Against an LA team with a lot of flaws, most of which Mookie Betts is pulling together. I mean, they are hanging on by a thread. That is Mookie Betts. And then there's that one flaw that he can't fix, which is that these guys cannot pitch in October. It's not the weather because they play in Southern California. They are not a clutch team, particularly on the pitching side. So, I mean, we just talked about the White Sox, right? A team with an excellent collection of talent that it just doesn't – I mean, there's no team – I mean, in other sports, right, like in basketball, how often do we talk about a team's chemistry, fit? We understand in basketball and hockey and football to a certain degree and soccer. I mean, I'm not a soccer expert, but I've heard this ad nauseum. It's not just a collection of talent. There's a fit element to it. And in baseball, people love to dismiss that because it is an individualized game. But in the postseason, when you're facing primarily really good coaching, really good pitchers, lineups that put pressure on defenses by putting the ball in play, moving runners, not striking out, you need to be buttoned up and you need to have a team that fits well together. And the White Sox certainly don't have that. It was not Rick Renteria's fault. It was the fault of their management and their front office that has been getting progressively worse since their last championship in 2005. Now, I think it's because they're too heavily reliant on analytics, but that's, I don't need to go down that path right now. The Dodgers are another great collection of talent that has a lot of flaws, and the Braves are not quite as talented, but very talented, and they do not look like a flawed team, especially this season. So I'm changing my pick. I'm going with the Braves. I haven't seen anything, in terms of the game, in terms of their game today. I would venture to say, I'm going to pick the Braves, actually, to win Game 2 as well. I'm going to pick the Braves. My initial thought was 7, maybe 6. I don't know. Maybe I'll rethink that down the road. Clayton Kershaw not able to start today for the Dodgers. Maybe that helps them. I don't even know. I mean, he's just dismal in the postseason. But he's tracking Game 4. And as far as Astros, Rays, I'm just going to stick with the Astros. I mean, they're down 2-0, but there are so many things pointing their way, in my opinion. So I think I'm going to stick with them. And I'm going to pick them to actually win the series in 7. So those are my picks, Astros and Braves. Should be a remarkable series. I mean, a lot of these series, World Series possibilities would be really, really fun, but we'll talk about that more later. There was a quote from Kyle Tucker that I've mentioned a couple times I wanted to talk about. It's not as fruitful of a discussion as I thought. I mean, it's kind of just a statement, and there isn't really much beyond it. But just to reiterate, he said that in the postseason, pitchers tend to try to exploit hitters' mistakes rather than play to their own strengths. Or exploit not mistakes per se, but weaknesses, rather than play to their own strengths, which is an interesting quote, and I think one that we should talk about. But we're out of time today. We're pretty much right on the button. We started at 6:30. I originally said 5:30, but I changed it to 6:30, and we got it in right about the half-hour mark. So thanks again for tuning in. Thanks so much for the support recently. I hope you enjoyed. Like, subscribe, comment, recommend if you feel inclined to do so, and have a healthy, happy, and safe rest of your Tuesday. So Thursday we're not. In all likelihood, not going to be doing a show. It's actually my birthday on Thursday. That's not why we're not doing the show. I have some other stuff going on. So I will try to get in a show tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then I'll maybe try to do a show early on Thursday if I can, but that's questionable. So I think Friday might be our next show, but maybe tomorrow. You guys know I don't like to do 2 shows, 2 days in a row these days. I think we should get in a show before Friday, right? There's playoff baseball going on. So, I'll keep you notified on the Instagram. And again, thanks so much for watching. Have a good rest of your Tuesday. And I hope you enjoyed today's show. Have a good one. Peace.